Okay, so you have to hand in your homework before May 1st, Friday classes start. And at this time, don't hand in your homework to the class board. Instead, you have to send email to my TA. This is my TA's email address. And then about this draft midterm exam, the format is very important. So you did some work about your term paper until now, and you have to integrate it, and you have to do more data analysis, but you have to do it in a way in line with academic format, which is described here. So term paper format, please use the APA format for your reference. Please keep in mind, please use APA format. APA format looks like this. Okay, this is APA format. And then for the detailed information, you can click this link. You will click this link and there is a paper format like this. Okay. Manuscript like a method, data and sample. It is section 1, section 2, and then section, subsection, sub-subsection, something like this. And I think it has everything. So whenever you have a table, you have to put blank and insert the table to about here and put everything in the back of the paper. So please read this one carefully and please make your term paper in line with this format. Citation format is slightly different here. It doesn't matter whether you use this citation format but APA format. But I think using APA format would be easier because you can copy and paste APA format from Google Scholar easily. So about citation format, you can use either this AMJ style guide or APA format. For other part, yeah, I think it has everything. Front page, write down your title and your name and your address, email address, and acknowledgement and something like abstract. I think it has everything. Times, use Times New Roman, 12-point type and letters. And then, yes, paper size is letters. Yeah, double spaced throughout, and a page number in the upper right corner. Leave top and side margin at least 1 inch. Yeah. Okay, so this is a format. And about storyline, okay, this is term paper format. Again, about paper structure. Paper structure, you can, let me add. Term paper format. And then add, insert, table of contents, good, citation guideline. Yeah. Okay, done. So introduction, this is just a restatement. This is just same thing. And about paper structure, you have to use either deductive or inductive one. Inductive or deductive one. Again, it is either phenomenon driven or theory driven. First one is the inductive method. Inductive one is it is the phenomenon driven paper. When you write an inductive paper or phenomenon driven paper, please follow this storyline. Okay, follow this storyline. Your paper should follow its suggested structure, this suggested structure, and answer the question in bullets. Do not write answer the questions. answer the questions. Importantly, do not write the question and answer them. Do not write the question and then answer the question like bullet by bullet. You should construct the sentences that incorporate the answer in natural manner. So it should be like a sentence and paragraph structure. It should be like an essay, not like technical paper. Answer, bullet statement, bullet statement. No, you should write down the essay, like academic paper, no technical paper. But anyway, in your paper, your essay should somehow address the question in each section, like this. You should construct sentences that incorporate the answer in a natural manner. This structure is based on Eisenhower. So if you have more questions about this inductive structure, you can download this paper and then check it. Basically, I follow this approach. So first, there should be a title. Any case study related to the class topic is fine. Okay. Case study, it doesn't matter. It can be case study or other quantitative study, qualitative study, it doesn't matter. So any title and abstract keywords. For detailed information, again, please check AMJ style guide in the PDF file, this one. And then in introduction, the beginning of introduction, your paper should start with the first 5 sentences. So except the abstract, okay? Except the abstract. In the introduction, I think I explained it before, but let me explain again. In the introduction, the very first paragraph of your paper should be composed like this. So the very first paragraph of your paper is about 5 or 6 sentences. 5 or 6 sentences, and then each sentence should be about this. The first sentence of the first paragraph is optional. It may start with some example in one sentence. And then second sentence of the first paragraph is the basically discussion of your topic about why your research question is important. For example, if you write a paper about credit risk, the first sentence might be on 14 September 2008, the share price of XXX dropped significantly due to an unanticipated credit event, something like that. And second sentence is discussion of topics like why credit risk is important, because if this paper is about credit risk. The third sentence of the first paragraph is about the existing literature on the topic. How existing literature discuss the credit risk or of your research question. And the fourth sentence is the example of existing literature. Write one important, just one, okay? Write just one important consensus and then cite the reference. Write down the consensus and in the parentheses, you cite it. And the fifth sentence is then you have to discuss what's wrong with the existing literature. Limitation of existing literature. For example, you can say such papers does not investigate well the impact of credit risk on stock price or something like this. And the final sentence, and therefore you have to announce your goal of the paper, like this paper investigates how credit risk affects stock return, something like this. Okay. So again, this should be the very first paragraph of your term paper. Example, and then why your research question is important, why your research topic is important, what existing literature says about your research question, and what is the example of the key literature, using literature, and what is the limitation of existing literature, and what is your research question, something like this. That would be the impressive first paragraph of your research paper. Okay? Any question? So it should be your very first paragraph. Please keep in mind. And then introduction introduction of your term paper should basically explain each comment in detail, actually. So, okay, so after the first paragraph, the remaining part of the introduction, you need to explain briefly the concept of your paper. And then, like in the previous example, you have to explain what you mean by credit risk, something like that. And then you have to explain what is your research question subject, why is your research question important. You write down around 150 words. Is there any research similar to yours? Write down about 200 words. What are limitations of a simple what are the limitations of the similar research? Write at least 2 limitations. Don't write just 1 limitation. You have to write at least 2 limitations of the existing literature. And then finally, what is the additional contribution of your research paper to the previous research? Write down about 100 words. Okay, so this is the one essay. This is the introduction. So for your midterm exam, at least introduction should be complete. I know you are collecting the data, and many of you haven't started analyzing data yet. So I admit that data analysis part would be hard, but at least you can write down introduction completely. So this introduction part would be most important element of your midterm exam. Any question until now? So are you clear about the introduction part? Okay, I'm giving you a very specific guideline about introduction. So it is actually for your convenience. Okay, since it is an inductive way of doing research, therefore after introduction, you have to explain your case or data selection. In this section is actually very important. So you have to explain why is your case or data relevant to your research in research question more than 200 words, and why is your case or data important to those in academia and practice. Okay? You collect the data, and you have to argue that the data you collected or you will collect is relevant to your research question, and you have to argue that those data or cases you collect is actually valuable to the academic readers or the people in practice. Actually, I have done in the plural form. What are your cases? Why are? Okay, so it is about case and data selection. And the next part is the data collection section, or data collection. This part should be actually very detailed. Okay, it should be detailed. So you have to write down what data did you collect, where did you obtain the data, and how did you collect the data. The data can be qualitative or quantitative. For quantitative data, it is like a standard database or survey or experiment. For if you collect the qualitative data, it may be interview or archival data analysis or media search about particular subject or event. Okay? So this part is important because people basically in academic research, when people read your academic paper, and if they are interested, then they should be able to replicate your research. So unless you don't write down this section very carefully and in detail, other people cannot replicate your research. If your research is not replicable, then people assume that maybe you manipulated your data or there is something wrong with your research. Okay? So your research paper should be replicable in order to make your paper replicable, this section should be very in detail and step by step. Okay? Does it make sense? Okay. Yeah, it should be. Okay. That's the whole purpose of academic paper. Should be able to, other people should be able to replicate your work. And then after data collection, now naturally you have to analyze data. Okay? The point of the data analysis, you have to find some general pattern because it is inductive research. So through the, you have collected the interesting data, and from this you should be able to some interesting pattern. Then how we can find the interesting pattern? That is way. Write down first. You have to write down history, background, or other information about your case or data in appendix. Okay, case or data in appendix. And then thing is like this. Idea is like this. So it is about appendix. I'll put this one in parentheses. So okay, how to do inductive research? How to find the general pattern out of your data? This is the way. Okay, first, you have to build at least two central constructs, or actually concepts. Okay, there should be at least two important concepts from your data. Okay, maybe it is profit or ROA, like some sort of strategic action, or some sort of practice in Islamic banking in your example, something like this. Some important concept, but there should be two. Okay, not one. There should be at least two important constructs. And then thing is that at least two concepts. And then your goal is to generate something like this. Thermo X, thermo Y. Okay, so there is a two important concept in your data. And in your data, you find that when X changes, Y changes. Then this is pattern. Okay, you find the variation in X and variation in Y. Then you can relate them. Then analyze how they vary collectively when X changes and Y changes. This will be used to formally suggest your proposition at the next section. So, do you understand what I'm saying? So, in your data, you come up with the two important concepts, find the variation with them, and then make a causal argument about the relationship. Done. So this is the pattern you find. So once you find those patterns in your data, then you have to now generalize it. Okay. This is called hypothesis or proposition generation. Okay. So you have to write down logic from data to proposition. Again, your proposition looks like thermo X, thermo Y. Okay. So from data, you come up with that proposition, thermo X, thermo Y. And there should be a logic, okay? There should be a logic between the data and then proposition, okay? It should be, this proposition should be logically derived. So basically, it's called, this means deriving propositions from the data. Again, the proposition should be like thermo X and thermo Y. Like the taller a man is, the more popular he is, something like this. If you are interested in this question, then of course, then you have to define the two constructs. In this data, there are two constants: the height of the man, because we have to define what we mean by whether a man is tall or not. And then you have to define popularity measure, what we mean by a man is popular or not, something like this. And then you have to explain how are your propositions relevant to your research question. Okay? Obviously, the whole point of writing down this research paper is to answer your research question. Therefore, this proposition should be an answer to your research question. And then you have to generalize it. You have to argue that the pattern you found is not particular to your data. Okay? Otherwise, you have to argue that it is generalizable. Okay? In order to generalize it, you have to find similar propositions or theories in the existing literature and discuss it. Because your research question is original, so I guess the pattern you found, your proposition should be original too. This is the new knowledge. Okay, this is new knowledge. So this is also new. Okay, this is new. But it doesn't mean that there is no similar argument. There must be something similar argument about this one. Then you have to find it and you have to relate it. Okay, what I find is similar to the other people finding blah blah blah, something like that. And related in this way or that way, like this. In that way you are generalizing. Compare your proposition with those in the literature. Already you found 10 key literature. And then in order to do this circle, maybe you have to do more literature review. Okay? In this way, you are generalizing your result. Okay? Next one is unfolding literature. This is actually further generalization. So you are convincing the audience, the readers, again about the generalization. And by unfolding the existing literature, you argue that why your research question and the answer to the research question are important. In this section, basically, you are arguing why your research is valuable to the other academic readers or professional readers. Then how to do unfolding literature? You have to argue how does existing literature help you to generalize your proposition. Part of this is done in the previous section. And what papers have similar or different proposition to yours? What papers derive similar or different conclusion to yours? What are your additional contributions of your research paper in detail? And which paper can highlight your contribution? If you do this one correctly, then people know, oh, this research is valuable, and this is the takeaway. And the conclusion, after that you are concluding your paper, state what we have learned, key takeaways, and then you have to, because it's a business class, okay? Business class, so it should be practical. So you have to find a managerial or policy implication, okay? And then, of course, no one's research is perfect. Therefore, you write down what is the limitation of your analysis. So, statement, basically, first one is basically summary of the most important one in your paper. Summary is not just a simple summary, okay? Key takeaway. Summary in line is summary related to the key takeaway, and then implication and the limitation. Done. And then this is the end of your paper, but still you have an important part, which is reference. This is very important. Without this one properly done, your paper is subject to plagiarism. So again, this part is very important. And then appendix. In appendix, describe your case in attach your resume. Yes, in the appendix, some academic paper ask you to put your biography in the paper. So I know it is maybe too hard to write down the biography of the authors. Actually, they are you. So instead of writing down biography, just attach your resume. Done. Any question? Yes. No, they are not data. They are good for this part, unfolding literature and then hypothesis and proposition generation. Actually, okay. Actually, I can add one more section. Okay. Okay, about literature review section. You wrote down essay, so you can put it in the literature review section. Next to introduction. But important part is that the 10 papers you collected or more paper you will collect, the key part is this one, okay? Hypothesis and proposition development, existing, this part, and the unfolding literature. Okay, any other question? Okay, now I will explain deductive structure. So this is one way of writing down paper. This is a phenomenon-driven. But maybe you want to write down now theory-driven paper. And there is another way of writing down theory-driven paper. Okay. So if you want to write down theory-driven paper, write it this way. Again, your paper should follow the suggested structure and answer question in the list. Do not write the question and still same. Do not write the question and answer then bullet by bullet. No. You should construct the sentences that incorporate the answers in natural manner. Again, title, abstract, keyword. And the introduction is same. Again, you should start your paper with the first 5 sentences that I explained before. And the introduction is same. Explain briefly the concepts of your paper. What is your research question subject? What is your research question important? Is there any research similar to yours? What is the additional contribution of your paper to the previous research? Your introduction is same, whether you use inductive way or deductive way. And then literature review. What paper have a similar research question to yours? So basically, this part is in line with the unfolding literature section in the inductive part. But anyway, literature review, write down what papers have similar research question to yours, what papers drive similar results or model to yours, what papers propose different result model to yours, what are your additional contributions in detail, which papers can highlight your contribution. Okay, now because it is theory-driven paper, so now you start from theory. Okay, using theory. What is your theory or model about research question? About your research question, you have to formulate the theory. And then, obviously, the theory you generated is not out of blue. Okay, it should be from somewhere else, existing one. Therefore, find similar theories or models in the literature and discuss. Compare your theory with those in the literature. Okay, you have a theory and you have to basically justify your theory. Okay. And then from the theory, you can generate hypothesis. Logic from theory to hypothesis. For deductive paper, this part is easy, usually. So, but anyway, you have to explain again in detail what is the logic from your theory to the hypothesis. Means derive hypothesis from theory. Okay? And then, of course, the hypothesis should be like thermo X, thermo Y. Okay, the total amount is the more popular heat. You may derive this hypothesis from some evolutionary theory. So you may derive a theory from evolutionary perspective that from the ancient ages, like tall men have advantage in hunting and fighting, and that is inside of, and those people are naturally self-selected, and then people have liked them, something like that. I don't think that theory makes sense, but anyway, there is possibly a theory. From the theory, okay, because of that evolutionary and our ancient human activity and lifestyle, and still we have that gene DNA. Therefore, nowadays, our hypothesis is taller men, more popularity, something like that. So at least it's a structural theory to hypothesis, right? So, okay. And then from theory, you generated hypothesis. Now, since you have hypothesis, now you can do empirical testing. Okay. First, you have to operationalize the hypothesis for testing. Okay. In order to test your hypothesis, you have to define what we mean by tall and what do we mean by popular. Okay. Once we operationalize hypothesis for testing, and then we have to collect data, and then what data did you collect? What are your data relevant to and important to your research question? Why did you collect the data? Quantitative data, experiment, and then survey, qualitative data. And then, of course, there is follows analysis. Okay, you have data and analysis. Okay, from your study, you have a hypothesis. Once you have hypothesis, now you can collect data. You can measure the hype, and then you measure their popularity, and then analysis is okay. Tallman has higher popularity. Done. Okay, so analysis. So either you can reject the hypothesis or cannot reject the hypothesis. And then conclusion, state what we have learned, managerial and policy implication and limitation of your analysis. Done. Reference and appendix. Describe your case in detail, attach your resume or bio. Bio. So it doesn't matter which one you take, but yes. You mean this part? So your case or data in detail. So again, the idea is that other people should be able to replicate your data and cases. And then, therefore, we want to write down in detail. But problem is that if you write down in too detail in the main text, then the paper does not look neat. Okay, people can get lost. Okay, so in the main text, you can give some information, actually enough information about your data, but in order to make other people replicate your paper, maybe you have to provide all technical details. And in appendix, you can write down those technical details, which is important for replication, but maybe not so important to the storyline of your main paper. That thing you can put it in the appendix. Good question. Yes? So usually when you do interview, it is good idea to have a script of the interview. Actually, I think it is good idea to copy and to submit the full script of the interview, but given that you may not have enough time, in that case, I will allow you to summarize the script and put it in the appendix. That would be fine. But in principle, everything should be scripted and put in the appendix. Yeah, any other question? So when I grade your midterm exam and the final exam, basically they are same term paper, I'll focus on the format. Content is of course important, but format is when I grade, like a format, the importance of a format is like 80%, and content is 20%. Okay, so actually to get a good grade, this format is more important for your grade than the content. And I have a strong conviction that if you follow this format very well and carefully, the content should be good too. They are highly correlated anyway. And it is very unlikely that there is a good takeaway in the paper that doesn't follow this structure. Because this structure is a scientific structure. This is the way people do social science. And unless you do not follow this structure and storytelling, well, even if you have good results, simply I cannot believe it. Simply I'm not, or people will not be convinced. Therefore, format is more important. Any question? Yes? Yes, of course, whole. But about the data analysis section, because you are collecting data, you have a blank for some of the section, I admit. Okay? It is like empty for some section. So in that case, please leave it empty. but at least the paper have the format. So, for example, because suppose you have very good interesting research question, but you haven't collected the data yet, then of course, this section, part of this section would be empty because you didn't do it. In that case, you leave the space blank. Okay, I didn't do it because I am still collecting data. Just write down that. Just write it down that you didn't collect the data yet. That's enough because it's a midterm exam. But of course, in the final paper, you have to do it. Okay. So at this midterm exam, it is fine to leave some part blank. But anyway, the format should be complete. Yeah, any other question? This is very important. No question? Yes. Yes. 네. 에세이를 써야지. So his question is, so it is not like take-home exam. Question answer, no. It is not like that. You have to write essay. Answer to each question is not like question answer, no. It should be in the essay. The answers are incorporated in your essay. Complete natural storyline. Yes, Tusa? Yes, exactly. Yes, right. So, yes, good question. They are title of the section. You can slightly modify it, but basically it looks like this. It would be fun, I think. And then I think I'm sure that this is actually a very good structure. I developed it, but whenever I look at it, I like it. Because even if you don't work in academia, even if you don't become researcher or professor, and you get a job in industry, still you have to write down some report, technical report. And when you write down technical report is also actually should follow this format. Not exactly, but at least a subset of this format. So this is complete, and when you write down report in your job, your report is actually subset of this one. Okay? So when you write down report in your job, maybe you don't have literature review part. In some cases, maybe you don't have hypothesis part. But at least it is a complete list, and in your job, when you write a report, you pick some of this subsection. That's it. Like, for example, you are a consultant in McKinsey, managerial. Then this hypothesis part is look like recommendation part. They call recommendation part. The more X, the more Y. The more marketing, the more your sales. So do the marketing more, something like this. So it is hypothesis and empirical testing. So, but maybe in that paper you may not have to do, you may don't have to do the literature review part or something like that. But anyway, just even if you become a strategy consultant, you write a report that is just a subset of this one. Investment bank, if you are a researcher, if you write if you write an analyst report about Samsung Electronics, maybe it is your not theory driven. In that case, your stock analyst, if you are a stock analyst and write a paper, it is likely to be an inductive paper. And then maybe you don't have a part for unfolding literature, but still you have to discuss other like media or you have to cite your previous research. So this part would be small, but basically still, in your analyst report, the analyst report should follow this structure. Okay, only some part missing. So this is important skill. Yes, Tusa? Yes. Yes, because actually no. I put the literature review part because Kevin wants to recycle his literature review. Yeah, you don't have to write that. This is optional because this enfolding literature part, this structure is basically same to literature review of the deductive method. But still may you want, this is optional. So still may you want to discuss existing paper, then it is fine. But in the inductive method, this is optional. Deductive method, this is important. In the inductive method, you put literature review later on, while when you enfolding your finding to existing literature. Yeah, good question. Yeah. Any other question? Well, I spent too much time explaining this term paper format. Well, it is worthwhile, I think. But I don't have time to start a new lecture, given that I have only 15 minutes. And after 15-minute lecture, we have like a 2-week blank, so you will forget everything. So I think this is enough for today. Yeah. Any question? Okay, so while you are writing down your term paper for midterm exam, if you have questions, please send me email or visit my office. Thank you, and see you in 2 weeks. Yes, Kevin. Yeah, you can find my email address there. Okay, or you can Google it then. You Google my name and then you can find my email address. You mean the due date of this paper? Yeah, next week we don't have class. But so next Wednesday, next Friday class, no. But next Wednesday class, we have classes. So we will meet again. We will meet again on 29th. Okay? Okay, enjoy your exam, midterm exam. Thank you and see you in 2 weeks.